So we made a pretty big promise to you today. It's not lost upon me. The promise was that you can create a market of one. You can create a market where you're the only viable choice. You can position yourself as being the only viable choice for the clients that you want to serve. And in doing so, make your competitors irrelevant and be able to charge premium prices because there's no alternatives to working with you. That's the promise we made to you. And today I'm going to show you a 5-step framework to make that happen. I'm going to show you how we applied that framework to our very own business because we are a market of one. We don't have competitors. And I dare you to challenge me on that. When we get to it, I'm going to ask you the question. Find me a competitor of mine. And I will show you through this framework how they are not, in fact, competitors and how we communicate to the marketplace. Okay. That's what we're going to talk about today. In a nutshell, we're going to cover the following. We'll talk a little bit about why positioning matters, why this is the conversation that we ought to be having, why this is where really the rubber hits the road, where business is succeeded, where the battle's won or lost. And then I'm going to walk you through the framework, the 5 cornerstones of power positioning. This is the meat and potatoes of today. This is the framework that I want you to apply to your business, hop on the hot seats with me to talk about. And then I'm going to share some case studies of, we'll use ourselves as an example. I'll share a few other client case studies of market of one positioning, and then we'll do the hot seats. Simple enough? Cool. So let's talk a little bit about why should you listen to me? There's a slide in here. I don't really like this slide, right? All right. Who am I? If you have no idea who I am, I started off as a solo consultant early on in my career, several years ago. Well, sorry, that's inaccurate. So my background is consulting professional services. Started off at Ernst & Young, did that for a few years, went to a small fledgling B2B consulting firm as kind of a jack of all trades. Was my next move, right? I wanted to be in something that was more nimble, more entrepreneurial. So I went to a small consulting firm and they kind of made me like the business guy. And they didn't really have anybody focused on the business side of things. They were all subject matter experts. And they said, hey, why don't you come in and why don't you run the marketing and the business development and the project management and the operations and the finance, all the stuff that we don't know how to do. And I said, sure, why not? What could go wrong? And short answer is everything went wrong because I didn't know how to do any of those things coming out of a big consulting firm, as valuable as that experience was. That firm, we ended up taking them to 7 figures in lightning speed. And over the course of that experience, I wasn't a marketer going into that firm, but I became a marketer coming out of it. So I call myself an accidental marketer because it was through that experience over the course of 4 or 5 years at that firm that I really developed an interest and an aptitude in marketing for professional services and developed a track record in that, so to speak. After that, I started off in business as a solo consultant, and I started just kind of farming out myself as a director of marketing for hire to other professional service firms. And when I decided to grow the company and scale the company, we ended up going from solo consultant, which is just me, low 6 figures, to multiple 7 figures, in fact, in about 30 months. And so we've grown very fast in the past, 2.5, 3 years. Today we have over 500 client success stories and case studies with 6 and 7 figure consultants. We have a team of 20 people. We have clients all over the world. We are, challenge me on this if you'd like, but we are the premier B2B consulting training organization when it comes to marketing and business development. That's our space. That's what we own. And we're really, really damn good at it. That's who I am. That's what we do. Miriam, by the way, who I'd introduced, is our marketing manager. She's really cool too. Quick background if you don't know who I am or you're not familiar. Okay. But let's talk about you more importantly. So if you're here, like I saw in the chat, you're a B2B consultant who is sick of relying on your network and begging for referrals. Right? When we don't know how to do marketing, when we don't know how to go out and create opportunity, we are forced to rely on the network that we have and the referral partners that are available to us. And after a while, going back to the network and going back to the same old referral partners gets really, really old, really, really fast. Right? We're tired of losing deals and competing on price to stay competitive. Right? When we lack positioning, when we lack solid positioning that we can stand on, then we can make a claim with, then we're going to lose deals to competitors who are not as good as you. And you're going to end up competing on price in order to stay competitive, because, price is the weapon of the marketer who has run out of ideas, right? When we can't solve for positioning, then we have to solve for price. And that is a race to the bottom. You're unsure where your next client is coming from because you haven't built a strategy and a system to attract them consistently. And you're stuck in the consulting rat race, which is that, you sign a deal, then you deliver on it. And then once the deal's over, the project's done, you got to go find another deal. You don't really know how to do that. So you go back to your network and you go back to the referral partners, and you've managed to squeeze out a deal here and there. Then you deliver on that deal, and then your head's down for a bit, and then over and over and over again. And it apparently never ends. That's very common. That is the plight of the independent consultant, the boutique firm. And look, you're tired of hearing the common refrain from marketers. I know I'm a marketer, right? But here's what people say. They say, well, you just need more leads. Oh, thanks. Didn't know that. You just need to post content on LinkedIn, as if just posting content on LinkedIn is going to make it rain money overnight. Tried it. Doesn't work on its own. Oh, you just need to go out and work your network, because I'm not already doing that. And there's only so many networking events that you can attend. And well, if the past year and a half, 2 years has taught us anything, sometimes you can't attend networking events. So that's not very helpful. Well, you just got to run some ads. Every marketer in the feed, for some reason, seems to be telling people to run advertising. Do you have any idea how hard it is to run profitable advertising? It's terrible advice. No, you don't just need to run some ads. That is terrible advice for the wrong person. Well, you just need to cold call, put yourself out there, just start dialing for leads, right? My point is, the market is flooded with people like me. I acknowledge this. It can be hard to differentiate at a certain level, who are telling you just need this tactic, this widget, this platform, this silver bullet, this easy button. If you just had this thing, then everything would change. And by the way, I have a course or a program or a software tool that delivers on this thing. Anybody else tired of hearing that? Just let me know in the chat. I'm tired of it. Anybody else tired of it? Hands up. Tired? Because how many times have you been down the shiny object syndrome path, where a marketer convinced you something was a good idea, and then you found out it didn't apply to your business or didn't make sense for you? Hey, I've been there. I'm guilty as charged. Like I've been down that path as a client, as a consumer, all the time, right? And my hope today is really to flip this whole thing on its head for you. My hope today is to convince you that you don't need a new tactic. You need a better strategy. Okay. You don't need a new tactic. You need a better strategy. That all the tactics above that I mentioned, by the way, let's go back to that slide. LinkedIn, networking, advertising, cold calling, podcasting, book writing, whatever. Like, guess what? They all work. They all work. That doesn't mean that you should do all of them. That doesn't mean they're all going to work for you. That doesn't mean they're all appropriate for your business. That doesn't mean that you can execute on all of them. Tactics are a dime a dozen, right? You don't need a new tactic. You don't need another tactic. What you need is a better strategy. And my goal for you today is to equip you with the tools, the framework to think through strategy vis-a-vis positioning. That is deciding where you're going to play and who you're going to be. That's really what we're doing today. Deciding, which what we call positioning, you could just call good old-fashioned strategy, which is making decisions about where we're going to play and who we're going to be. Because when we make those decisions, choosing the tactics becomes straightforward. So you know who marketers prey on? Marketers, there's good marketers too, by the way. I'm a good marketer, right? But I'm kind of painting everybody else as a bad marketer, but there's good marketers out there. I'm one of them. There are many others, right? There are also opportunistic marketers, and they prey on people who don't have a strategy. Because if you don't have a strategy, then every shiny object, every new tactic, every distraction seems like a good idea, because you don't have a filter to put it through. You don't have a way of assessing whether a tactic makes sense to you. When somebody pitches me a tactic, and it happens all the time, I have a filter. I ask myself, does this tactic align with our strategy as a business? That is who we're going after, what we're trying to achieve, our acquisition model, etc. And so this is the challenge, right? We don't need new tactics. We don't need new widgets. We don't need new platforms. We don't need new tools. We need a better strategy. When we have our strategy, the tactics to use become straightforward and the execution of them becomes straightforward. Does that make sense? Everybody with me so far? We're going to jump into the details here. Quick check-in. Are we tracking? Is this clear? Any questions in the Q&A, Miriam?
Got a quick question from Paul, but I think it's better suited towards the later half.
Cool.
You can have a quick look at it if you want, but I think
yeah, that's fine. All right. So I'm going to jump to a really simple definition of power positioning. Okay, so power positioning is the framework that we're going to teach you here today. And the best way to, I think, articulate how this works is to take us back to Economics 101. For those of you who recall Economics 101, either in high school or undergraduate education, or maybe you haven't done it, but you've heard about this concept of supply and demand. I'm sure you've heard of it, even if you haven't studied it formally. And what the theory of supply and demand states is that every market has an equilibrium. Okay. Every market has an equilibrium. That is the point at which the supply curve meets the demand curve on this graph. You have price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. And the equilibrium is the point at which the demand curve meets the supply curve. And that equilibrium is where the price is set. Okay, so for a given market, and I want you to think about your market, because your market is a market, and your market is not immune or exempt from the dynamics of supply and demand. This applies to all markets. In your market, there is an equilibrium that for a given point of supply and demand, where it meets, price is set. Okay, but this relies on one fundamental assumption. That is that on the supply curve, the suppliers are interchangeable. They're interchangeable. That if all the suppliers are fundamentally the same, they look the same, they sound the same, they have the same value proposition, they have the same service delivery, they have the same this, that, and the other, then the price is what it is. And if you ever found that you just have a hard time charging above a certain amount, this is why. Because the market, your customers, expect things to happen at a certain price. And those expectations are set by other suppliers whose prices they're accustomed to. And when you try to charge something higher than that, you're outside of the equilibrium of supply and demand, and you have a hard time winning the deal unless you can justify the price premium. So what do we do is the question, right? This is supply and demand, and you all operate in markets that are bigger than you, right? You're one very small micro player in what is otherwise a big market. Okay. So what do? Well, we can't really do anything to affect the demand curve, can we? I don't know about you, but I don't have the control. I don't have the means to go out and create more demand in a marketplace. That's not something that's within my sphere of influence. I can't go create demand. Those are macroeconomic forces. In my market, we serve consultants. The macroeconomic force that creates demand is a lot of people are leaving their jobs and becoming consultants. Working independently is going to certainly create more demand for turn more people into consultants, therefore create more demand for our services. There's lots of things that are going on macroeconomically that are creating demand in some industries and constraining demand in other industries. So there is an actionable here in that you want to choose an industry where demand is on the rise, all things considered, and not on the decline. So that's a decision. We can't create demand, but we can choose industries where there is sufficient demand and growing demand. That's a decision to make from a positioning perspective. But other than that, we can't really create demand. Christian's asking, doesn't marketing create demand? In a sense, yes, but marketing doesn't create demand in that the need never existed. Marketing creates demand in that it highlights a need and brings the buyer's awareness to the need, but it doesn't create demand. You can't create an issue. You can't, through marketing, manufacture a problem. You can merely draw attention to the problem. So in a way, yes, but we don't fundamentally create demand. Demand either exists or it doesn't exist. The need exists or it doesn't exist. What we can do What we have the ability to do, what we have agency and control over is the supply side. So what happens when the supply curve shifts? And again, economics 101, you would have learned this, right? When the supply curve shifts, all of a sudden there's less capacity. There's less available supply. And what happens to the price? Price goes up. So think about like the classic example of supply and demand is in a supplier controlled market is OPEC, right? The oil, what's the word? What's the word for this? What's the word?
I'm not sure. Conglomerate?
No, there's a word. What's the word? Consortium. There it is. Thank you. Consortium. Like not consolidation, consortium, the oil consortium of oil producing nations, OPEC, right? When OPEC constrains oil production, what happens to the price? Price goes up of a barrel of oil. We all pay more at the pumps, right? And when OPEC opens up more production, price goes down. They control the price. The suppliers control the price. Okay. So I'm going to bring this home for you. The opportunity that we have as sellers in a market that is bigger than us, where we don't have control over demand, we can't create demand, we can't affect the macroeconomic forces that are shaping the future of the market. The opportunity that we have is to constrain supply by eliminating perceived alternatives. Okay, we can constrain supply by eliminating perceived alternatives. So on the left-hand side here, all the suppliers look and sound the same. There's one supply curve and that's it. They're interchangeable. And therefore the price is what the market demands. It's what the market sets. And you as a supplier here on the left-hand side have no control over price if you're just like everybody else. But on the right-hand side, if we're able to shift the supply curve by drawing out distinctions between you and everybody else, by clearly differentiating what you do from what everybody else does, by clearly articulating a value proposition that cannot be matched by another competitor, we shift the supply curve. And now all of a sudden, you're not interchangeable. They can't get what you sell somewhere else. So the price goes up. But not only does the price go up, the price going up is merely a byproduct of this. More importantly, is that when we're able to constrain supply, like OPEC, when we're able to constrain supply, we have all the power. We have control. Okay, it's a seller's market. You're probably familiar with that term in terms of real estate, right? There's buyer's markets and there's seller's markets. Right? A seller's market in real estate is where there's not that many homes on sale. Therefore, the sellers can charge whatever they want. A seller's market in your context here is where you're able to clearly distinguish yourself and differentiate yourself from the competition such that they don't have anywhere else to go. You've created a market of one. You've clearly distinguished yourself from the competition. So not only do you command a price increase, you can charge more than everybody else because it's different, but also you have power, you have control. There's so many clients out there who need your help, and there's only one of you. There's so much demand for your services, and there's only one of you. We're trying to get to, this is the outcome of strong positioning is ultimately excess demand. Excess demand. The demand for your services exceeds the supply for your services. And when that happens, the price goes up. You choose who you want to work with, because if you have excess demand and a pipeline full of clients who want to work with you, you don't take on bad deals. You don't negotiate your fees. You don't continue working with clients who are causing you trouble, because you know, and they know that they need you more than you need them. Most of you right now are in client relationships where you need the client more than the client needs you. And we want to completely turn that upside down. We want to create positioning such that everybody knows, you know, and they know that they need you, because you're the only provider who can do what you do the way that you do it Well, you don't need them because there's many other clients you could work with. Does that make sense? Quick check in here. Everybody with me? Did the economics 101 lesson land? Cool. All right. So I'm going to give you a really simple definition here of power positioning that encapsulates our last segment there, and then we're going to jump into the framework. Okay. So I want you to think about power this way. Power equals confidence divided by available alternatives. This is the formula. Power equals confidence divided by available alternatives. What do I mean by this? Well, confidence is the basis here, right? You could be different from the competition, but if you're not able to inspire confidence in your ability to deliver results, it's not going to do you much good, right? And I want to be really clear here that at the end of the day, why do clients hire consultants and service providers? Any guesses? Why do clients hire consultants and service providers? What do you guys think? What's your best guess? Yeah, Yuri says future state. Leonard says for a result. Tiffany, results. Renita, solve problems. Yeah, confidence they can deliver an outcome. Absolutely. Results, right? Sometimes it's funny. We seem to forget the fact that no buyer ever woke up in the morning and said, I need to hire a consultant today. That never happened. I promise you that never happened, right? What they do is they wake up in the morning and go, well, we got this really, really pressing problem that we can't seem to solve on our own, and we need someone to come in and help us get results. They want results, 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 results. That is all they care about. And when they come to the place of making a decision to hire a consultant, the way that they measure, grade, assess the consultants available to them, even if they don't explicitly say it this way or think about it this way, is confidence. Who do I have the most confidence in their ability to get me results? That's what they're looking for, confidence. Because if I have 90% confidence in one consultant and 50% in the other, who am I going to choose? It's obvious, even if they're more expensive. Even if the guy's a bit of a jerk. You know, this is my problem with the whole know, like, and trust philosophy. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I've hired consultants I do not like. We don't need to be friends. I've hired consultants, and people have hired me who I don't think really like me either. We don't need to be friends. I don't need to like you. I need to know that you can get results. That's all I care about. Confidence and your ability to get results. We don't need to be friends. Okay. But that's not sufficient, because if I have the same amount of confidence in everybody, then there's no power, right? We have to discount the confidence that they have in you by dividing by available alternatives. That is, who else do I have confidence in? Who else could come in and do the work that you're claiming to do? Who else could do it just as well as you? That's how much power you have. That is the measure of the power of your positioning, is the confidence that clients and the marketplace has in you divided by the available alternatives. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? Cool. All right. So let's jump into the framework. Okay. So I'm going to take you through the 5 cornerstones of power positioning that are designed when these work together to increase confidence and decrease alternatives. That's why I shared this formula. The framework I'm going to show you is designed to increase confidence in your ability to get results and decrease the number of available alternatives so that we maximize the power that we have in the marketplace. Power positioning. Okay. So we're going to present this to you as a pyramid. By the way, Miriam, I'm going to call it out. We spelled clarity wrong.
That was my bad.
That's okay. I'm just going to call it out so nobody thinks that we didn't notice. We noticed clarity is spelled wrong throughout the presentation, folks. Spoiler alert. That's okay. Happens all the time. We're going to own up to it. Okay. So this is a pyramid that we're going to show you here. And like any good pyramid, it's held up by the base, the foundation, right? So we're going to show you these cornerstones in order of priority. And the first cornerstone of power positioning is client clarity. Client clarity. That is choosing who to serve. This is the who in the equation. Choosing who to serve. Okay. And the goal of client clarity is really simple. We want to take you from a wandering generality who's trying to be all things to all people. And this may or may not be true for you. It's certainly Joanne said you're not positioned for spelling. Good one. I like that. That's a good jab. I'll take it, right? We want to take you from a wandering generality to a meaningful specific. So many consultants, what they do is they make the mistake of trying to be all things to all people because they think that, you know, if I constrain my focus, if I get too narrow, what's going to happen? I'm going to miss out on opportunity. That's the thought, right? But in fact, the opposite happens because the narrower we get in our focus, the more clear we get about customer problems and pain points, the more nuanced and specific we get in terms of our solutions, and the more we resonate with the marketplace. Because here's the thing, I promise you this, no client, you know, first of all, no client woke up in the morning and said, I want to hire a consultant. And when they got to the point where they wanted to hire a consultant, no client ever said, well, I want to find the most generic consultant I can find. They never said, I want to find the most generalist, generic jack of all trades that can just do anything for me. Nobody ever said that. Okay, what they want is the specialist. It's like when you go to the doctor's office and you're talking to your general physician and there's some concern about maybe your heart condition and maybe you have a family history of heart disease and you're a little bit worried about, there's some chest pain or something like that. And really what you're trying to say to your general physician is like, get me to a specialist, get me to a cardiologist, because you know that guy's out of his league. This is a specialist conversation. Well, every client wants a specialist. They don't always say it that way, but it's common sense, right? If my goal is results, and I have to choose between a generalist jack of all trades that tries to be all things to all people and markets themselves and presents themselves that way versus the consultant who is clearly focused on serving clients who are just like me and they don't mince words about it. Who am I going to choose? Who do I have more confidence in, all things considered? The one who's clearly focused on serving clients like me. Make sense? The other angle to this that I want you to consider is, as an expert, you are investing your expertise in a market. And I use that language very deliberately. You are investing your expertise in a given market. Your asset is your expertise. And the goal of your investment of expertise into a market is you want a return, right? You want a return on your investment of expertise. Your asset is your expertise. You're looking for a return. How does an investor compare different investment classes? How does an investor compare different asset classes, different investments? Let me know in the chat. What do you think? How would an investor, if they're investing capital, how do they compare the performance of investments? Yield, rates of return, good. But compared to each other, right? Because if I invest in 3 different asset classes, I want to know which asset class is generating the highest yield, the highest rate of return, right? 5% is maybe good to some, but if I have another asset class that's generating 10%, all of a sudden 5% doesn't look too good, right? Now, this is how you want to think about your selection of market, where you want to play, your client clarity. Because you could, if you're a bona fide expert, you could invest your expertise anywhere. Doesn't mean you should. You want to be asking yourself, where am I going to earn the highest return on my expertise? All right. Where am I going to see the highest yield on my expertise? That's the question. And if you're honest with yourself, the answer is not anybody and everybody. There's a very specific type of client, segment, vertical, size of organization, buyer persona, etc., all of which is beyond the scope of today's conversation. There's a very specific type of client where you are going to earn your highest yield. And ignoring that is ultimately at the expense of that yield. So I wanted to give you an example. I made up a fictitious example to take you through as we go through each of these 5 layers here. Okay. So the example I have is a consultant, B2B consultant named Jody. And Jody's a marketing consultant. And Jody's done a bunch of different things for a bunch of different types of clients. And she woke up one day and decided, you know what, I really want to become a meaningful specific and not a wandering generality. I really want to become known for something and have some semblance of focus in this business. So I'm going to decide to focus. And I'm going to go through Ahmed's power positioning formula, and I'm going to create some focus and some power in the marketplace. And the first question that Jody asked herself was, where am I going to play? How am I going to find client clarity? And when she looked at the clients that she'd worked with, she found that the best clients who got the best results and who were the best to work with and paid the highest fees happened to be B2B SaaS companies that are somewhere between $1 to $5 million ARR, annual recurring revenue. I'm getting somebody saying, are you sharing anything? I see a blank slide. Are y'all seeing my screen? It's largely blank because we're building out the pyramid here, but can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your
screen.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Jody says, you know what, I've worked with a bunch of different clients, but again, the best ones in terms of my enjoyment working with them, the value exchange, the transformation, the results, the fees, the highest return on my expertise, again, coming back to return yield, is definitely here. B2B SaaS companies between $1 and $5 million annual recurring revenue. That's my sweet spot. Okay, well, that's Jody. And then she asked herself, well, but I've done a bunch of different things for these types of clients. It's not just one thing that I did. I've done a bunch of different things for these B2B SaaS companies. And some of those services were good and some were not as good. And some yielded results and some didn't yield results. And some I liked doing and some I didn't like doing. Right. And, you know, Jody realized that trying to be all things to B2B SaaS companies is a tall task, right? She's one small independent marketing consultant. She can't be all things to this massive market. The B2B SaaS market, including those who are between $1 and $5 million annually, is a big market. It's not a small market. It's a bigger market than she could ever serve on her own. So she needed to get more focused. And she needed to find some problem specificity. That is, what specific problem can I become known for? And that's the thing to really focus on here when it comes to problem specificity. What problem can I become known for? What problem can I make a name for myself around? You know, somebody said earlier on that clients are looking for consultants to come in and solve problems. And that's true. Ultimately looking for results, right? Solving problems is the path to getting results. The outcome that they want is results, but absolutely solving problems is the path to doing so. And they see consultants as problem solvers, right? But the problem is nobody believes that you're world-class at solving 10 problems. It's not believable. I don't care who you are. Even if you are world-class at solving 10 problems, which I don't fundamentally believe, but even if you were, nobody believes that to be true. Because we know, this has been ingrained into us, and we see the evidence of it in many different facets of life, that specialists are more adept than generalists. You know, when you get a PhD, you get a PhD in something very, very specific. And you're a master at that specific topic. You know more than anybody in the world likely on that topic. But when it comes to something else, you might as well be an idiot. You know a lot about something very specific. And when you have that, we have confidence in your ability to solve it. And your ability to solve it becomes more effective and more efficient. And you solve it faster for a higher fee. So this is some of the benefits now of getting very specific with the problem that you solve. One is that clients are going to recognize you as the expert at solving that specific problem. Two, they're going to have more confidence in your ability to solve that problem than somebody who is more broadly focused. Three, you start solving problems faster Because at the end of the day, you're solving the same problem over and over and over again for similar clients. So the efficiency of your service offering becomes stronger. 4, your price goes up, because once you have a track record of solving 5 or 10 of the same problem for a similar group of clients, guess what? You start getting noticed and they pay a premium. And then 5, last but not least, you become the undisputable top tier consultant when it comes to that specific problem for that type of client. Okay. So Jody, in our example, Jody said, well, you know what? Customer churn is the problem that is most on the minds of these clients, these B2B SaaS companies. It's the one that I have had the most impact on, the one that I've had the most results in. And again, going back to our analogy of the investor, given the investment of my time, energy, and expertise, it's where I earn the highest rate of return. For every unit of my energy spent with a client, I earn the highest rate of return in this particular area, solving for customer churn. So client clarity is the who, problem specificity is the what. And I'll say one more thing about problem specificity that hopefully brings this home for you. Your clients are walking around right now. They are waking up in the morning. They're going to work. Okay. They're conducting meetings. They're working with their team. They're going home at night, and they're thinking about, through all of this, their very specific problems. They're not thinking about marketing solutions. They're not thinking about consulting solutions. They're not thinking about service providers until you get to that stage in the buyer's journey. They're not thinking about you or who you are or why should they care about you. They do not categorically care about you. Okay. They don't, I'm sorry. Okay. They don't care about you. What they care about is their problems. And the more specific you are in your marketing, in your messaging about speaking to that very specific type of client and articulating their very specific problem and indicating that you have a very specific solution to that problem, the more you're going to get their attention. And the more broad and the more vague you are about that, the less attention you're going to get. Does anybody disagree with me there? It's a really important contention I'm making. Because if you don't get that, you're not going to get any of this. No one's looking for generic solutions to generic problems. They're looking for specific solutions to their very specific problems. Cool. So Jody says, B2B SaaS, 1 to 5 million annual recurring revenue, customer churn, that's my problem. And by the way, somebody mentioned earlier, and I'm trying to follow the chat here a little bit. Paul mentioned, your yield or your return might not always be revenue based. It could be working with a great client. Sometimes you enjoy working with them. Absolutely. Right? Think about return and yield in the most broad sense, not just financial return, but energetic return. And I completely agree with Paul. I think energetic return is the greater return, because if you don't have energetic return, what I mean by that is working with these clients, solving these problems does not create energy for you, right? If you find that working with your clients drains your energy, you have a negative energy return. You work with clients, they're a pain in the ass. You don't like them. You don't like the work. You don't like how they treat you. We've all been there. I've been there. Don't feel bad. We've all been there. It drains your energy. You have a net negative return on energy. You're in an energy deficit. So the thing to optimize for, first and foremost, and Paul, I appreciate your comment because it's highlighting this point for me, is you want to optimize for an energetic return. That working with these types of clients, client clarity, solving these types of problems, problem specificity, creates energy. I'm at a very fortunate point in my business, and it wasn't always true, that the more work I put into the business, the more energy I get. I don't find what I'm doing with you right now does not drain me. I will not be tired after this. I will be pumped up and motivated because I love this. I love working with you folks. I love solving the problems that we solve. It creates energy. I have a positive return on energy, which results in a positive financial return because you put more into the business. You put more into your client work. You become better. You become more effective. You earn higher fees, financial return. Make sense? Cool. Let's keep going. The third piece we got to dial in here, we're talking about Jody, right? Jody has to now dial in her point of view because actually, even within this, although we've already, you can see, effectively eliminated the vast majority of marketing consultants. That's who Jody is. Jody's already made most of them irrelevant just by saying, hey, I work with B2B SaaS companies that are between $1 and $5 million annual recurring revenue and who are concerned about customer churn. Somebody asked earlier, what is customer churn? That is customers leaving, right? So a B2B SaaS company, recurring revenue driven, churn is the number of customers that leave on a whatever monthly or annual basis, however they measure it. She's already eliminated most of her competition because how many other marketing consultants are there that focus on B2B SaaS companies at that level with that problem? Not many, but there's still some, and we still have work to do. And the next layer that we have to add in here is her point of view. Her point of view is her explanation as to why the problem exists. Okay. It's her explanation as to why the problem exists. Now, this is very important because your client and your prospect is no fool. And if you think of them as fools, that's a bigger problem. But chances are they're no fool. They've been struggling with a problem, in our case here, customer churn. They probably tried different things. They probably come up with solutions. You know, chances are the customer you're trying to sell to, it's not their first rodeo. Either they've tried things internally, or they've hired consultants in the past, or they brought on a part-time employee. They've done things. Now, it happens that this is their first kick at the can. It happens. But by and large, it's not going to be their first kick at the can. They've done things in the past. And if you don't have a perspective on why what they've tried in the past has failed, you're not going to win a deal. Okay, you guys with me? If you don't have a perspective on why what they've tried in the past has not worked, you're not going to win the deal. The consultant that wins the deal, assuming that the first two layers of the pyramid here are dialed in, client clarity, spelled right, and problem specificity. Okay. The consultant that wins the deal, when all that is dialed in, is the one who can clearly articulate to the client why what they've tried in the past has failed. Why is that? Quick data point for you. The Rain Group did a very large, significant study, most significant study of its kind on 600 plus professional services transactions. And what was interesting about this study is that they surveyed the buyers of these transactions, the folks who were signing the checks, and they asked them, what made you choose the winners over the losers? In these 600 transactions, what made you choose the 600 professional service firms? And this was strictly a professional services and consulting study, which is really interesting. What made you choose the winners? What made the difference? And they asked them to rank the winners versus the losers across 43 different criteria, 43 different factors. And what they found was the number one ranking factor that made them choose the winners was also ranked dead last, number 43 among the losers, had the biggest delta. Was not they play a good round of golf, or they're my cousin's husband's dog's nephew's father, or they're down the street from me, or we had a pre-existing relationship, or I like their website, or they have cool branding, or none of that nonsense. It was, in the buyer's words, the seller educated me with new ideas and perspectives. The seller educated me with new ideas and perspectives. In other words, they showed me why what we were doing in the past has not been effective and painted us a picture of what we could do differently in the future to get better results. And it made sense to us. That's a point of view. A point of view is an articulation as to why things have not worked well in the past, why we have not been able to get results the way that we've been doing things up until now. But it also creates hope that there's a better way. And in our example of Jody, who's completely manufactured, by the way, I'm going to give you some real case studies after this, but Jody's a completely made up example. Jody said, well, listen, here's my point of view on the churn problem, is that most B2B SaaS companies think it's their product. They think the product is the problem. We have to make changes to the product. People aren't using the product enough. The product isn't sticky. The product isn't being adopted. The product this, the product that. And they made all these big, very expensive changes to the product only to find that the impact on churn was, nil or negligible. And Jody says, maybe it's not the product. Maybe it's your messaging around the product. Maybe we have to reposition the product in the mind of your customer to improve the adoption rates and therefore the retention rates. And I'm making this up, but that's a pretty good point of view. Like that's probably true, right? If you're a marketing consultant in the SaaS industry, I'd run with that, right? That's probably true. And that's her point of view. And you can see right away, this is different. It's very contrarian. It's very disruptive. She's saying customer churn is not a product problem. It's a messaging problem, and we can solve for it without touching the product. Well, that's compelling. But it's probably not compelling to everybody. And this is the thing about a point of view. A point of view is where you take a stand and you don't mince words about your particular take on this problem. And in doing so, you're going to be divisive. You're going to be divisive. Some people are going to fundamentally disagree with your point of view. And some people are going to wholeheartedly agree with your point of view. And that is a brilliant thing. Because the people who fundamentally disagree with your point of view are never going to become clients. And the ones who wholeheartedly agree with your point of view, those are your clients. Those are your buyers. And by becoming clear on what your point of view is, you attract those perfect clients to you. Does this make sense? Let's check in here. We're about 3 out of 5 parts of the framework done. Are we clear? Is this making sense? Are there any questions I can address at this stage?
We have something in the Q&A.
So the question in the Q&A is, the client that I have worked with the most has always come back to me because of my generalist experience within my field and flexibility. Sure, there are specialists in my field, but that becomes a problem for these clients when they cannot handle the work in a different area of my field. Okay, so in a nutshell, this client is coming back to you because you're convenient. And if you're the convenient choice, there is an upper limit to how much you can charge, and you have no way of scaling. And I don't even mean that to be clear, that's not a criticism. You can make a reasonably good living as a generalist. And this is good. I should clarify this, right? If you're good at what you do, you're a good generalist. A good generalist can make a decent living. You're smart. You're good at solving problems. Clients develop trust in you, right? You're reliable. You're convenient. They can count on you to solve different problems. You can make a hell of a living. I don't know about a hell of a living. You can make a decent living by all means. There's an upper limit to how much you can charge because you're a generalist and you only pay generalists so much. There's an upper limit to how many clients you can serve because generalists tend to get really sucked into working with 1 or 2 big whale clients, and you become effectively a contractor or an employee. And there's an upper limit to how much you can scale because being a generalist solving generalist problems doesn't scale very well, right? Because you can't create systems, you can't create efficient processes because everything is different. So, I say that because you could do just fine. Like you can make a living, you can pay the bills. It's effectively another job where you're working for 1 or a couple of clients, and that's fine. What we're talking about in terms of positioning and specialization is for those who want to go beyond that. Higher fees, less work, better clients, more power, more control. But that's a choice. You don't have to make it. Does that make sense? Good question. Cool. All right, so we're going to keep going. I see some questions here, but I want to get through the bulk of this framework, and then we'll come back to some questions a little bit later. All right, so Jody's got client clarity, B2B SaaS, $1 to $5 million. She's got problem specificity, customer churn. She's got a point of view. It's your messaging, it's not your product. Now what she needs is a results mechanism. And a results mechanism is the vehicle through which the point of view can be operationalized. Say that again. Your results mechanism is the vehicle through which your point of view is operationalized, executed, implemented. So the thing to really understand about a point of view is that a client buys your point of view before they buy your service. By the way, in this room right now, there are 85 participants. Okay. Somewhat. I think we're closer to 100. Some people have dropped off. Like it's something like it's like 85 to 100 participants. And I know from my experience doing workshops like this, that 15 of you are going to be clients in the next 7 days. We know that. We've done this many times. And what's happening right now and probably about half of you will become clients the next 3 to 6 months. What we're doing right now is I'm selling you a point of view. I'm selling you a point of view. And you're going to buy my point of view before you buy my service. And you might not buy my point of view. You might be on this right now and be like, I don't buy it. This doesn't make sense. I don't know what this guy's talking. 2 people just dropped off. That's what they were thinking. They're like, no, not buying it. This doesn't make sense. And they're not my clients. And that's okay. I'm totally cool with that. There's a big market, lots of people to serve. But the vast majority of you right now are like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And it's not tactics that are my problem, it's positioning. And if I have the right positioning, I can pair myself with the right tactics, I'm going to get great results. That's what the majority of you are thinking right now. And we haven't even talked about my product or my offer. And we're probably not going to really today at all, to be honest. That's not what it's about. I will make you an offer at the end, but it'll be brief. And then some of you will buy. But the point I'm making is that what you're buying, I'm doing to you what I want you to do to your clients. You're going to buy a point of view before you buy a service. Your clients are going to buy a point of view before they buy your service. Okay. And the reason they're going to buy your service is if it's clearly the best and most effective way to implement and operationalize your point of view, right? Like if I make you an offer after this, then I'm like, hey, here's power positioning and why it's amazing. And by the way, here's the thing that you can buy. It has nothing to do with positioning and we're not going to touch it. And it's this other thing altogether. Who's going to buy that? Doesn't make any sense. Right? Once you embrace my point of view, I need to give you an offer that helps you operationalize, execute, implement that point of view. That's the results mechanism. That is your offer. That is the tangible service that you sell that creates a result. We call it a results mechanism for a reason. It creates a result. It's not a service. It's not a deliverable. It's not a document. It's a result. What you're selling as a consultant is you are selling a result. And you need to articulate a mechanism through which results are achieved that stems from your point of view. So the example here is, wrong way. In Jody's case, Jody has a mechanism called the B2B SaaS LTV extender. The B2B SaaS LTV extender. LTV stands for long-term value because that's what these customers are trying to optimize for. They're concerned about churn because they want to maximize client lifetime value. So she has this mechanism, and I haven't fully articulated it because I'm making it up, right? Where you go through her process in the B2B SaaS LTV extender that incorporates adjusting the messaging at every critical client touch point, at every critical milestone in the client journey, from their first marketing message to the point of sale, to the onboarding communication, to the ongoing communication via email, via their customer success manager, etc. She helps you dial in all the messaging at these critical touch points to maximize lifetime value, minimize churn. And she has an articulation as to how she does that at every stage of the client journey and how that ultimately improves lifetime value, reduces churn. And here's the thing, her explanation intellectually makes sense. Okay. That's the key to a results mechanism. Who here has heard the expression that customers buy on emotion and justify with logic? You heard that before? So some people take that and they do the wrong thing with it. It's true. Customers buy on emotion and they justify with logic. And often that can be abused and people just start selling with emotion and forget logic altogether. That's not the point, okay? It doesn't mean you just sell on emotion and throw logic to the wayside. Absolutely, you sell on emotion. That is, you attach clients to the outcomes that you can achieve together, which the results mechanism helps you do because it's focused and framed around a result. What is my offer called? 90-day pipeline. The result is baked into the name of the thing. And when you hear us articulate it, we're really clear about results and outcomes. So when you're focused on the result, the client becomes attached to the result emotionally. But when your explanation of how it works is intellectually sound and they get it, they're able to make that logical justification. They buy an emotion, justify with logic. You've got to provide both the emotion and the logic. And a results mechanism well articulated delivers on both. Does that make sense? Y'all with me? Quick check in here. Cool. Awesome. All right. Last but not least, we have the unique story. So this is like the icing on the cake. Bear in mind, up until now, you are the undisputable choice, okay? If you have client clarity, you have problem specificity, you have a point of view and a mechanism. If I'm that B2B SaaS company and I'm looking at hiring consultants and Jody's clearly focused on B2B SaaS, clearly focused on customer churn, has a point of view that resonates with me and a mechanism that helps me execute on that point of view, who else am I going to hire? Like, it's a no-brainer. She is a market of one. Okay. The icing on the cake is the unique story. Or think of this as the signature story. That is, how, Jody, did you come up with this? How did you get so good at this? How did you figure this out? There's a unique story that really cements her unique position in the marketplace and makes her the undisputable choice. So, Jody might say, well, here's the thing. I used to work at a SaaS company and I was in the marketing department, and everybody in the marketing department was so focused on new customer acquisition. And everybody was convinced that, that's the biggest opportunity for this firm is new customer acquisition. And I wasn't so convinced. And I started solving customer churn problems. And I started working with the customer success team. And I started working with product messaging once clients had already been onboarded. And it got to the point where people saw me as a bit of a renegade. I was a renegade marketer at the SaaS company. And initially, people didn't really see why, and my superiors didn't have a lot of belief that what I was doing would make sense. And then we started to see this increase in retention and this increase in lifetime value that was directly attributable to the work that we did on messaging. And the entire philosophy of the company changed. And all of a sudden, our priority became, over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, reducing churn and improving retention, and therefore lifetime value, so that we could spend more time and energy on acquisition, knowing that we're going to extract more value from those customer relationships. And obviously I'm making this up, right? So the point is, she has a story and it makes sense. It's like, well, where did she get this? How did she learn this? Oh, that makes sense. The story is credible. The story is believable. The story is factual. And it helps me position why she's ultimately the best choice to take on this project. Cool. Okay. So I want to get through some case studies, and I want to do some hot seats. Okay. So we are likely going to go over time. Just a heads up. And if you got to run, you got to run, but we're likely to go over time. I want to make sure we get through as much of this as possible. So case studies, I'll probably give you 3 in the interest of time. I'm going to give you mine because some of you are familiar with our business, so it might be a bit of a meta case study that'll lock in some of these things for you, right? So if you look at my business, boutique growth and our core offer, 90-day pipeline, client clarity, B2B consultants. It's not for software companies. It's not for B2C services. It's not for people that are selling to consumers. It's not for commoditized services. It's not for products, e-commerce, etc. It is B2B consultants. Okay. Problem specificity, no pipeline. Really simple. You're a B2B consultant and you don't know, you've heard us use this line, you don't know where your next client is coming from, i.e. you don't have a pipeline. You are a sitting duck. You are at the mercy of the clients that you have. And the moment something happens to their business or they decide to part ways with you or you lose a deal, you are on the verge of bankruptcy. If that is you, that is a terrible, terrible, terrible position to be in. And we've got to do something about it. Problem specificity. Okay. By the way, when you enroll in our program, we solve for way more than this. There's an important lesson there. Like there's some clients in the room here actually, and they're looking at this and they're going, yeah, but you guys do way more than solve for pipeline. You're right. We do. That's not the point though. That's not what people want. Right now, if you're the right client, you want to solve for pipeline. You may have other wants and needs, but your focus isn't solving for pipeline. And when you get in the door with us and you realize that we solve for all kinds of other things like pricing and demand and efficiency and passion and confidence, that's icing on the cake. What you know right now is you don't have a pipeline, and that is what you wake up in the morning stressing about. And that's what we focus on. Our point of view, which you're getting directly from me today, is positioning over prospecting. So there's lots of other people who are trying to sell you tactics. They're trying to sell you lead generation. They're trying to sell you prospecting methodologies. They're trying to sell you widgets, tools, and platforms and courses. And I am saying to you, none of that is your problem, and none of that's going to work until you dial in your positioning, because prospecting without positioning is like pouring water into a bucket with a giant hole at the bottom. You'll waste a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money on prospecting if you don't have your positioning dialed. But if your positioning is dialed, prospecting becomes effective and efficient, and you earn a return on those efforts. This whole presentation is about communicating that point of view to you. Okay. Results mechanism, 90-day pipeline. There's sub mechanisms to that. If you want to know the details there, go to 90daypipeline.com. We have all 6 pillars of our mechanism there laid out. And unique story. So my unique story is that I came from a consulting background. I worked at Ernst & Young. I did the B2B consulting thing, the big firm, and then I did the boutique firm, right? And I sold into large corporate. We sold into government agencies. We sold into big conglomerates, right? So I did the big firm thing. I did the boutique firm thing. I'm not a marketer actually by trade. I never studied marketing, right? I'm a consultant. I'm an accountant by trade, right? So didn't start out as a marketer, have the B2B consulting pedigree from the big firm and then from the boutique firm, right? And the truth is, most people who compete with me never consulted a day in their lives. They're digital marketers largely, and they're typically good marketers, but they don't have the B2B consulting background, right? Through my experience building B2B consulting businesses, I developed an aptitude and interest for digital marketing. And now, I mean, by virtue of the fact that you're here, we're considered the best marketers in the business. I'm a really good marketer. And so what I bring to the table, this is my unique story, and it's not, it's kind of objective, right? Like I don't say this to brag. It's kind of just an objective narrative of who I am and where I came from, and how I'm uniquely positioned to do this work is that I bring this B2B consulting background with digital marketing expertise into a package that nobody else has. At least at our level. We have smaller competitors. And when I say we don't have competitors, I mean at our level. We have smaller competitors, sure. There's always competitors, right? But people who are doing what we do with our background at our level, solving the problems that we solve, they don't exist. Challenge me on it. And it's not that I'm a genius. is that we've assembled these 5 pillars into a sequence that makes us a market of one. When people don't buy from us, it's not because they went somewhere else, it's because they couldn't afford us. And they might have gone somewhere else, but they went somewhere cheaper. We don't lose deals because they found a better option. We lose deals because they can't afford us. And that's okay. I'm fine to lose those deals. Does that make sense? Okay, I think we need to kind of make a call here. I have more case studies, but we need to do hot seats. What do you think, Miriam?
Thoughts on doing a few hot seats, and then if folks want to stick around and see some more examples, we can come back to the case studies.
Yeah, let's do a couple of hot seats. Let's do like 2 or 3. Okay, let's jump into hot seats. We're gonna go another 15 minutes, and so folks got to leave. Totally understand. You've gotten the bulk of the material that we were planning on delivering today, but I want to get at least 2 or 3 hot seats in. So let's jump into that, and we'll take another 15 minutes here.
Good. Ahmed, I've sent you over a link with people's LinkedIn profiles. We've got a lot of names in there, 10, 11. So it's going to be tough for us to do that. But let's start at the top. Wale or Whale or Wali, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm just going to bring you over and you can chat with Ahmed. You should be able to unmute now.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey. How are you?
I am good, thank you.
Excellent. All right. So serve up a question for me. And how do I pronounce your name?
Wale.
Wale. Serve up the question for me. Let's have the chat. Yeah, go ahead, Wale. How can I help?
Well, I guess you can see from my profile, I'm one of those generalists. I've been in the industry for quite a while, over 20 years now. My industry, my specialty is in process engineering, essentially. I have a particular client that I've worked with, and they keep coming back. And I find, yes, there is a trust thing there. They trust me to get the work done, which is partly why I think they always, come back to me. And I'm also flexible in terms of the sort of work I do across process engineering. My background is process engineering. However, I have done with regards to project management in oil and gas, i.e., building oil and gas plants, say in the Middle East. I have sort of worked with them from the conceptual stage all the way to construction and commissioning, and then start again, essentially, and follow them through different countries, working within that project management team. I am looking for a specialty, if you like, a positioning in terms of branching out, which is why I have been essentially following you to see how you can help me with that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your question for now, Wale?
Well, my question is how I have essentially a broad process engineering experience. My field, my market, if you like, is in oil and gas. But as you know, oil and gas is all about cleaning it at the moment, carbon capture and stuff like that, carbon neutral, carbon zero. Finding, what part within, because you had mentioned earlier about, client clarity and choosing a growing market, if you like. So essentially, it's about, what sort of, how would I go about, if you like, zooming in, if you like, on that market, if you like, on that area, growing within oil and gas. Oil and gas has been going on for years now. It's not going to stop, to be honest, but it's standing out essentially.
Yeah. So I think again, look at that pyramid, right? The first question is what market do we want to play in? So have you made the decision that you want to stay in oil and gas? Is that where you want to play? And it's a matter of finding the right problem to solve within that?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, right. So then it's problem specificity, right? So the thing that you want to think about now is that within oil and gas, right, is which problems are top of the agenda for your clients. And you want to really think about this from a buyer persona perspective. So this is part of what we couldn't really get into today, but we go really deep on this in 90-day pipeline is once you have a client defined, right? You want to think about who's the buyer persona, who is the decision maker, the check writer in the organization. Okay. And we want to look at it from that person's perspective, not the organization's perspective, because that specific buyer is going to have specific needs and challenges. And we want to ask ourselves, what is their top of mind problem? What is their top of the agenda problem? What is the thing that is consuming most of their, or a big chunk of their concern? And we want to target that problem, because a mistake people often make is they target problems that are further down on the decision maker's agenda. But if they're further down on the agenda, they don't get attention, they don't get budget, they don't get focus, they don't have urgency. So we want to target the problems that are higher up on their list for a specific buyer persona.
Okay. That makes sense.
Now that, by the way, doesn't mean that you can't do anything else. It means that's where you start. Because what happens, like you've experienced with this one client of yours, is you go in to solve one problem and they realize, oh, well, this guy can solve a bunch of other problems too. Right. So that first sale is really just the entry point, right? So you don't need necessarily restrict yourself to just doing that one thing, but it becomes the entry point. It becomes what you become known for, and it becomes how you get your foot in the door with the organization. And then from there, you build a relationship. Cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. Yeah.
In the interest of time, that's probably all I can say about it, but that's yeah, that's my best advice at this stage.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool. Yeah, and just a note for people, because we're really tight on time here. If you do get a chance to get on the hot seat, be very direct with the question, and I'll try to be as direct as possible with my answer so we can get as many people on as possible. All right, who's next, Miriam?
Right, we can bring on Tim next. Hey, Tim, you should be able to unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Tim.
Hi.
What do you have for me?
How can I determine the single strongest aspect of my background in wearing numerous marketing hats and take that to the most likely market for that specific part of my background?
So here's the thing, right? I'm just gathering from your question and just a quick glance at your profile. You've done a lot of stuff.
I've done a lot of stuff.
Right. You've been around the block. You've done stuff. You've done projects. You work with different clients in different industries. And for somebody like you, this is easier for some than others, but for somebody like you, for us to come to an objective conclusion, like a data-driven objective conclusion on where to direct Tim for the highest return on his expertise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you've done too many things.
Yeah.
Right. And you probably had success in many different things.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So for somebody like you, and I'm sure there's folks in the call here for whom this rings true, it's less about, you're not like the previous questioner who like his oil and gas is his game. It's been his thing and it's really obvious, right? For somebody like you, I think more than an objective data-driven assessment, it's an energetic assessment.
Yeah.
It's where do you want to play?
Right.
It's what do you want to do, right? It's what markets, what segments, what types of work lights you up.
Yeah.
Because it's a good place to be. You get to make a choice now here, right? And the choice is entirely yours. So for me, it's an energetic question at this stage.
You want an answer right now? Yes. The field that I found myself in more consistently than any others was what we might call alternative health products and services outside the normal structure of our healthcare system. We all know of different products and services. And I didn't necessarily pursue it, but once I got some experience there, then I had that to show to new ones, and I end up doing a whole program for probably the best known what's the name for the naturopaths in a couple years ago with a whole program where I wrote probably 30 different email or
So what's stopping you from going all in?
I've gotten to a point where I want to consult on best practices. I don't necessarily want to do the work.
Okay, but that's not mutually exclusive
copyright.
with setting. Yeah, but that's not mutually exclusive with choosing a really clear market, right? Like you can still do higher level advisory services within a
Yes.
particular focus.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's stopping you from doing that?
I don't know. In brief, because of the brief conversation we can have here. I don't want to get into a situation where it's a continuation of what it has been. I guess I'm looking for a new way to use my background that I haven't before, and not be pinned down to 6 weeks of my head buried in great copywriting. That's great. I've been there, done that. Now, how can I step it up and not?
Yeah, so it's probably for you, it's a matter of really getting clear and focused about the market because you have some credibility there and some clear purpose there, but then also adjusting the mechanism so that you're not the scribe, you're not the writer, but you're offering a higher level service, which you absolutely can do given your pedigree, right? Now, if you were a new copywriter who just jumped into the market today, I would say, dude, go write some sales letters, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you don't have the chops, right? I'm inferring that you're not that person. You have the credibility that you can leverage into an advisory service where people pay you for your ideas, not for your writing.
Yep. In fact, you just gave me a somewhat of a clarification on something I do have an opportunity with, and that is the guy who invented the video sales letter is moving into AI, and he's told me, hang around, I'm going to have something to point you in that direction. I'm a little frustrated. It hasn't happened yet. Everything takes longer than what you expect it to.
Oh, good. Well, I know it's a short conversation, Tim, but I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Christian,
you should be able to unmute now.
Christian attends every workshop that we do, by the way.
Oh,
hey, Christian,
not every.
Christian, when are you going to just buy the damn thing, man? What's
Because you've never spoken to me before, so I've always felt a bit slighted, you know.
Oh, here we are. All right. Oh, good, man. How can I help?
So I would say, firstly, I think it was really, really useful, interesting. If I sort of am self-critical, I would say where I'm probably lacking is on the client clarity, because I think I'm zoned in on a very specific problem. I think I've got a point of view. I've got a results mechanism. I've got a methodology, which I can explain, and I've got something of a unique story, which I explain in my about section. So I'm wondering,
so who's this for?
So that's the thing. We work in so many sectors. I mean, basically, it's a problem which it's for a health and safety manager, but that health and safety manager could be in a hotel or a swimming pool or a manufacturing facility or a shopping center or whatever.
I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I mean, client clarity can be achieved via vertical focus. It can be achieved through a buyer persona. So do you typically target that health and safety manager at these different organizations?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the problem? What are you coming up against?
The biggest problem that I face, I think, is kind of what I talk about at the bottom here, which is that everyone understands the problem, but they kind of overlook the size and scope and importance of the problem. So it's about educating, what are the benefits of getting it right.
So let me ask you this, and I don't know anything about your industry
Yeah.
apart from what I'm reading here, right? Is it safe to say that your health and safety manager is more concerned about a slip and fall accident once it happens?
Yes.
What's your referral network like?
Pretty good. So I partner up with some insurers and cleaning contractors, health and safety consultants, people like that. So a lot of my work is, I generate inquiries through LinkedIn, but a fair chunk is through referral and partnership.
So, and to be very clear, like, I'm not being prescriptive here because that would be irresponsible for such a short conversation. I'm just going to give you some ideas, right? But if I was you, this is an interesting problem, but it's not unique in that sense, because there are many business problems that one, the pain of which is only strong enough when there's recency. It just happened, right? And secondly, there's no way for you to know that it happened because you weren't at the mall when they slipped and fell, right? Like, there's no way for you to know. In those circumstances, the most efficient path is usually the referral network.
Yeah.
Like, just go and build out a massive referral network of the people who would know when a client is in this position. And you rattled off a bunch of them. If I'm you, and again, I'm not being prescriptive, but something to think about, I'd probably focus less on trying to get in front of end user clients, because it's going to be fairly inefficient because you don't know who cares about this or who's concerned about it or who had a recent issue. And I'm going to focus like 80 to 90% of my efforts on that referral network.
That's a good idea.
Which has consequences though, right? Because now they're your customer.
Yeah.
And the messaging, the focus, the communication is about that referral partner, less so about the end user client.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that help?
It does, yeah.
Good, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
We got room for one more.
Well, Anne raised her hand about 1 million times, so we got to get Anne on.
Hey, Anne, thank you for being patient. You should be able to unmute now.
Hi. Okay, I'll be very short and sweet, as I promised.
Hey, Anne.
I have had my own consulting firm since 1996. I normally serve corporate clients. I offer team building and executive retreats to help them foster innovation and boost their bottom line. And my sweet spot is normally clients with between 20 and 200 employees, clients who are going through a lot of change. Last year, I had my clients surveyed and discovered they're not on LinkedIn. Or they're there, but they don't go there. They don't go through the feed. They don't, they only come in once a month and check in their email to see what their former colleagues are doing. That's it. So I realized that all this effort that I'm putting into LinkedIn has really been a waste of time. On LinkedIn, I am connected with a ton of entrepreneurs, small business owners who have been hit very hard by COVID, and they're trying to transform their businesses and stay afloat. So I came up with an offer for a boot camp, and the boot camp is using the tools that I have used to bounce back from 4 economic downturns. So everything is tried and tested in the School of Hard Knocks. The challenge I'm running into in email marketing and LinkedIn is people, for the most part, are not clicking on links. They used to click on links and go through and look at what you were offering. They're not doing that anymore. And it's not just my problem, it's across the board on platforms. So my question is how to encourage people to click on the links and get more information. With LinkedIn, you can't put the link in the actual post initially, or it's not distributed. So you have to edit and put it in later.
It's a messaging problem ultimately, right? Like people click on things, or more broadly speaking, take action on things that really pull them in, right? And so if we're finding that we're not getting that engagement.
No, across the board, people are clicking on less. That's just the fact. And it means that you've got to find a way to really compel them.
Yeah, and that clicking on a link probably shouldn't be your only call to action. Are you encouraging them to DM you, or are you encouraging them to engage with you in other ways that maybe is not a link click? Like the DM works really well. I mean, we see clients having tons of success with a good, strong post that has a lot of strong, emotionally compelling copy, which is the basis of any kind of response. And then the CTA is just, hey, DM me if you want to chat about this. And people do it all the time.
The people who are doing it, are these entrepreneurs or are these B2B, bigger companies?
Both, but that all depends on who the persona is in B2B. Like if you're trying to target CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, yeah, they're not DMing you on LinkedIn. Their direct reports might. Their direct reports might. Like people that are in those companies might, and they could take you to the decision maker. That's more of a strategic discussion to have in terms of who you're targeting. But we were talking about your boot camp thing for entrepreneurs, right? So I was speaking in the context of that.
So you think for the entrepreneurs, it's better to say, if you would like to want to know more, pop me a DM and I'd be happy to fill you in.
Yeah, but the 80-20 of this is the messaging. Like the CTA is far less important than the messaging in the post itself. That's where the battle's won.
Well, I have actually gone over the messaging. Oh yeah, you're in Toronto. So in York region, they have a consulting service for businesses, and they hooked me up with a marketing expert who had 6 sessions with me, and we went over my messaging, my graphics, everything, the whole works. And it's supposed to be compelling, and people are not clicking.
Then it's not compelling. Like, so you work with a marketing consultant.
They're not clicking on links. I have not asked them to, I have not asked them to DM me. I haven't asked them to DM me.
It's worth a test then, right? Like if you switch the CTA to DM me and people start engaging, then there's a problem with the messaging. But maybe that little shift, that little tweak will help. Try that.
Okay, I'll give that a try. Thank you.
Cool.
I promised I would be short and sweet, and I kept my promise.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Cool. All right. Apologies, folks, but we do need to wrap up here. I am 10 minutes late for another meeting. Keep an eye on your inbox. We tend to do workshops like this once every month or so. There may be an opportunity to get on a hot seat at another time. If you want to get on a hot seat, but we didn't have time to get to you, I would still encourage you to get on that test drive call with our team. My program advisors are well equipped to handle, the bulk of your questions that you might have, even the strategic ones. So they're good people to talk to because they talk to consultants like you all the time, and they see the results that our clients have inside the program. And so their insights will be really valuable to you as well. Gonna wrap it up there. Miriam, why don't you send out the link to that test drive booking page via email as well, in case people lost it in the feed. We'll get you a link to that via email. Again, if you want to do it, they're going to fill up really quickly. I jump on that right away. Otherwise, been a real pleasure. Hope this was useful to you. Always a pleasure hopping on with you folks, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, everybody.